So Fox News is freaking out because Joe Biden said that the press in India was more well behaved than the press in the United States.
The Prime Minister of India was in the Oval Office on Friday afternoon, I do believe, and before the American press came in, the Indian media, that outlet was inside, and this is what was picked up on camera. Just watch here.
What we're going to do is bring in the press. The Indian press is much better behaved than the American press, and I think, with your permission, we should not answer questions because they won't ask any questions on point.
Okay.
But first and foremost, we have to acknowledge the very obvious and blatant hypocrisy. I mean, just look at this small sliver of how Donald Trump treated the press.
Honestly, I think you should let me run the country. You run CNN. I'll tell you what, CNN should be ashamed of itself having you working for them. You are a rude, terrible person. You shouldn't be working for CNN. And the leaks are absolutely real. The news is fake because so much of the news is fake. I mean, I watch CNN, it's so much anger and hatred and just the hatred. I don't watch it anymore.
Donald Trump absolutely berated the press. He called the press the enemy of the people. He made an obvious show of pointing his direct opposition to the press in the United States. But more than just the hypocrisy, what this Fox News host said next is the most concerning.
So all true and all incredibly revealing about the White House strategy.
We're talking about India, the country that right now has a right-wing leader that is aggressively cracking down on dissent. This is what this Fox News host seems to be sort of cheerfully celebrating as an obedient press. But I don't think Joe Biden is giving a complete picture here. Because sure, to an extent, the press in the United States might be less obedient than the press in India, where they're aggressively cracking down on dissent, but by no measure is the press adversarial. But this is a central issue in the United States, where both Republicans and Democrats have a very strong incentive to paint the press as being incredibly adversarial when they are not, so that when the press uncritically publishes the press release of police departments or the State Department, then the general public isn't looking at with the eye of, oh, well, the press is just repeating the same lines as the government. Noam Chomsky pointed this out years ago when he demonstrated the coverage of the Vietnam War was completely lopsided and completely in favor of American imperialism.
The British press did not have the kind of stake in the Vietnam War that the American press did because they weren't fighting. Just check sometime and find out how many times you can find the American war in Vietnam described as a U.S. attack against South Vietnam, beginning clearly with outright aggression in 1961 and escalating to massive aggression in 65. If you can find 0.001% of the coverage saying that, you'll surprise me. And in a free press, 100% of it would have been saying that. Now, that's just a matter of fact. It has nothing to do with left and right.
And while Noam Chomsky has those old examples of how the press in the United States is obedient, we need to look at all of these headlines talking about Havana Syndrome, talking about it uncritically as though there's some sort of magical ray gun that these socialists have invented that somehow is a mystery to the State Department and the United States government. Dozens of headlines have been run about Havana Syndrome as proof that these nefarious socialists are out with their sinister deeds and their mysterious ray guns. But few cover the fact that the general scientific perspective on Havana Syndrome is that it's simply mass psychogenic illness, and that the State Department had internal documents declassified that suggested as much. But no, most of the mainstream press in the United States played their obedient role of supporting American foreign policy and fear-mongering about socialist countries. And the criticism from both Joe Biden and this Fox News host is evident of an underlying view that the press should be more obedient, that the press should ask less questions, and not in the ridiculous way that Fox News is. Fox News is disobedient in the way of just spouting unbelievable, ridiculous right-wing conspiracy theories and then demanding that Joe Biden account for them. That is the type of theatrical opposition that doesn't structurally challenge anything about the system that we have, and all it does is support the interests of big businesses. There are very few places where there's a popular leftist critique of what politicians are doing. This is Ben Carollo with Rebel Headquarters. You can catch my show Galaxy Brain every Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on the Young Turks Twitch channel. You can also follow me on Twitter if you want to stay up to date with my content.